And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show. And it's another fine day. It's in the middle of March Madness when we're actually doing this live. March Madness, whatever you want to call it, it's a lot of teams that always have the hope of a national championship. But we got another good show with another special guest. But all my guests are special. But this guest is, I would say, very special for a lot of reasons. A couple of reminders. Wednesday night, Mike Schmidt will be on with us with the opening of baseball season the next day for the Phillies. Can't believe they played 2 games to start the season last week, or this week actually, when we're doing this week in Japan. I mean, it's all about money. It's not about having really a connection to the season. But we'll have that. There's a lot of things to talk about. I'm asking people to subscribe to YouTube, which is a great place to also watch the program. We'll talk about some Eagles stuff and obviously some Phillies things. Still don't like that lineup. But also, we have an exciting new sponsor on the Howard Eskin Show. And that would be an exciting new sponsor. We welcome Cut the Cord with Jason. Jason offers an incredible service that will save you money. Now, who doesn't like to save money? We all like to save money, and we know what happens with cable services and the continuing rise in cost. He'll come out to your house, cut your cable off, set you up with a less expensive internet service with streaming services, which include all the local and national channels. So you'll still get to see all the Philly pro teams. And just in time, you can watch the NCAA tournament, March Madness. You can also watch baseball. You can watch everything. You'll have multiple, this is what's great too, you'll have multiple screen viewing so that you can watch, this is crazy, 4 games at the same time. So for more information and to save yourself a lot of money, trust me, this is really a good thing. You can call Jason at 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. All right, our guest. A lot of coaching. I mean, the introduction's going to be, it'll probably take me a day and a half or maybe a year and a half. Was the head coach at Penn for 17 years. Temple for 13 years, LaSalle for 3 seasons, 10 Ivy League championships, 8 NCAA berths. Actually, I didn't even realize that because he was coaching so long, he had 15 years as an assistant. I think all those numbers are right. Let me welcome LaSalle coach, who just announced his retirement, Fran Dunphy. Fran, welcome to the program. Genius. How do you coach all those years? And you still enjoyed it I could tell you still enjoyed it the last year. You enjoy the wins, obviously, but how do you coach all those years and still keep yourself at the level that you want to really coach at to be your best?
Well, it's a phenomenal job to coach young people, and the competition keeps you alert. I hope. I'm sure there were some times where I wasn't as alert as I would have liked to have been. But it's fun being around young people. And so it's been tremendous. I appreciate LaSalle asking me to come back for these last 3 years. So it was great. My time at Penn, I appreciate Penn giving me an opportunity. My time at Temple was great. And so how about how lucky I've been to be 33 years doing this in the same town. All of my buddies are mad at me for never having to move. I just stayed in the same house. Been terrific. So I've been very, very lucky, and the Philadelphia community's been so great to me, and everybody's together in terms of wanting to help each other. I've known you for 50 years, for crying out loud, maybe more.
Yeah.
And you've been a big part of what Philadelphia sports is all about. You've covered everything, and I think the great thing about what you did was you were there. You were live. You did your homework, and I appreciate that about you.
You know what, Fran, I think it's important, and it's getting away from the career a little bit, but who you are as a coach. When somebody's there, and you try to get information, maybe not inside information, but just a better understanding. How important is that for not just you, but a coach or a player to have somebody there? I mean, I just had a text message conversation with Jason Worth the other day. I mean, our first experience, he was really angry at me. And then after that playoff series in 2007, we sat down and talked, and now we're good friends. It's just, but how important is that for a coach or a player to have somebody there to understand what a coach or a player is trying to do?
I think it's very important. Life is about building relationships, and when you feel good about somebody and you trust them, and like if somebody wanted to tell you something that they didn't want blabbed throughout the world, they'd say, "Hey, Howard, this is between you and me, and that's sacred territory." And I think those things are really important because you may say something about one of your athletes, one of your guys, and uh, doing great, except this thing is preventing him from being even better than he is, type stuff. And there's sacred ground there. And not that you're going to report, but you're going to do it the right way, and that trust is important in everything we do.
You know, when you cover when people cover sports, if you're not having fun, you're not trying hard enough. So to go out there, I enjoyed talking to people more than I enjoyed, a good number of the games. Not every game's great, but I enjoyed talking to people and there's a lot of times I didn't even talk about their sport. Oh, I got to know, well, what happened on that play? You guys talk about that all the time. It's the other things to get to know a person who is coaching or playing for that team. I don't think people understand that enough.
I might use the example of just walking in somebody else's shoes. When you go out there, and again, you watch and see all the interplay at a practice. You watch the interplay during the games. But again, there's a trusting statement made by both parties in so many different ways that you become vulnerable to one another, and the vulnerability makes you human. I was just talking about Danny Hurley, University of Connecticut, who's done an unbelievable job, and he talked about how he had some issues, and he talks about it openly, and it was on 60 Minutes, and ESPN did a piece on it.
I saw it. Yeah.
Makes you human. It makes you human, and I think there's power in it, and there's leadership in it. I can't be more impressed with him as a coach and as a person, just for showing who he is.
You know what? Jimmy Johnson one time, and I got to know Jimmy a little bit, obviously, with all the terrific coach. He said, and you would know this as well as anybody. He says the wins are great, but you live with the losses longer than the excitement of a win. You know, it's just I understand that, but what was that like for you? Did the losses stick with you more than the excitement? I mean, you make an NCAA tournament, you win an Ivy League championship, but you probably remember the losses more. How difficult is that?
Well, it's crazy but that's how we live. It's what's you forget the wins. You never forget the losses. I say when I talk to groups all the time and talk about overcoming adversity. We were playing Princeton when I was at Penn in a game at the Palestrin. We had a 27-point lead with 15 minutes to go. No way we could lose the game. We did.
It's
We lost.
unbelievable. Yeah.
We lost, and at the time we lose by one. I would have sold my soul to the devil for 2 more points at that time. But that team that I had, they came together. They won the last 7 games of the year, and we went to Princeton and won by like 25 points. We'd go to the NCAA tournament. There's nothing like I would have sold my soul to the devil over 20 years ago. I would never want that loss to go away because it made me understand what that particular group was, and they became winners in the end. And there's nothing like that. There's nothing like being on a team and you go through things together. That's what you remember. Those relationships that you have with the kids, with the assistant coaches, the fans, all of those things are really important.
You know, when you coach a team, and college players are different than the professionals, especially nowadays. The NBA is a joke. You may not want to admit it, but it's a bad product because the players run the league. The coaches, there's only a few coaches that still have control of the players. But how important is it to connect with your players. I think Nick Sirianni does that really well. Andy Reid, people don't understand it. He does that really well. And those two guys are very good coaches. How important is it for a head coach to connect on a real person basis, not just coaching, with his players?
I think it's critical, especially these days. And I think I was watching somebody else do an interview, and they were talking about when you criticize, you do it one on one. When you coach, you're doing it as your team. But let's say somebody's really having a tough day, and at the end of practice, you're going over and you're sitting down talking to somebody. But, what's going on? Personal, basketball, school. What's going on? We need to move ahead, and as do you, because you're invaluable to us as a basketball player, and we need you. Your team needs you. What are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? I think one of the I learned a lot of things from Popovich, but I think that was the key to his success. And I believe that when they had their heyday, I believe he went to Tim Duncan and said, "Listen, I'm gonna kill you today in practice. I'm gonna be complaining about everything that you do, because if I can complain about you, then everybody else is going to have total buy-in." I think they had that kind of relationship. But he also had this thing where, that arm around your shoulder, everybody touching everybody in a physical way, that it just meant a lot to him, and I think it meant a lot to the players as well. Of course, he had Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker in addition to Tim Duncan, and he will tell you those were the guys that lifted him. But there was that special relationship, that special bond that he created.
It seems like Steve Kerr, it doesn't seem, I can see it, has players that can get the other players to do the right things. And there's coaches but you got to have those players on the team to be able to do that. Obviously there were some years, in college it's probably a little bit different. Is it harder to get a college player to kind of get the other players when you can't quite get through to them, to get them to do all the right things and the best things?
I think that's, again, what you talk about amongst coaches all the time. When the leadership comes from within the group, your team is much stronger. It can't just always come from you. It's never going to work. But if you're guys that have been around and you build that trust, and I had Jerome Allen when I first started out, in the off season, he might say, "Okay, we're going to play pickup at 4:00." Well, everybody was there because Jerome said, "This is what we're doing." And if you're not doing it, then you're not as dedicated to the cause of going to the NCAA tournament as he was. And you wanted that too. You just didn't understand how to get it, but Jerome knew it. And I think that's a classic leader. When it comes from the group, it's much more powerful. And Steve Kerr has a guy like Stephen Curry, and he wants to lead. He wants to be coached. He has sat there post game and said, "Hey, yeah, Coach Kerr got on me today, but I want to be coached. I want to learn the game even more than I do." But I think that's what makes him, Curry, great.
I'll tell you a story that Scottie Pippen told me one time when he was obviously with the Bulls, and Michael Jordan was still there. They had a few days off, and they always tried to set up a few days off in Philadelphia because Michael loved the casinos. So Michael could go down, but he always went to practice, even on an optional day. So I said to Scottie one night, we got together with a bunch of the team at Bookbinders down on Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, for those people who are listening outside the city. And I said, "You practicing tomorrow?" He says, "It's an optional practice." "Well, you're going to be there?" He says, "MJ's going to be there. If he's there, we're all there." That's what it is.
No question about it. No question about it. That leadership is critical, but you need to have that guy who's doing it while they're running a sprint, which nobody ever does anymore. But back in the day, you'd have sprints because you felt like it was getting you in better condition. All the while, these guys are running up and down the court for 48 minutes a game. That's all the conditioning you need. The reality is, but when the leaders speaks from the group, then we got something real special.
It makes a coach a better coach. I'll give you another story. Phil Jackson, and I was told this story, says to Michael Jordan one night, big game, he says, "Hey, Michael, I need Dennis to play. Dennis Rodman, I'm talking about. I need Dennis." I says, "Can you?" So he says, "Can I talk to Dennis?" Phil Jackson might have been a great coach, but he always had players You know, when he was with the Lakers, he had Shaq and he had Kobe. With the Bulls, he obviously had Michael Jordan. He said, I need Dennis Rodman to be able to play. Can you talk to him? No problem. Dennis Rodman had a great game. I guess it's a little different in college, but I guess a coach, and you've probably had it somewhere along the way, has to lean on a player for his help sometimes. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now it's going to be getting a little bit harder because of the transfer portal, and you're not building those 4 years of loyalty or 3 years to get to that fourth year of that guy being the leader on the team. So we're in a different world today. So you're almost bringing a new team together every June, let's say, and you have a summertime opportunities to get together, but it's just different. You don't have that loyalty back and forth from the coach to the leaders in the program.
You know, Fran, when I look at your career, I remember all the years, but you had over 625 wins, which is it's a lot of career wins. And I guess it's hard to think about moments because the career was so long, but do you ever reflect, or how much do you reflect on the past of your career as you look back on it now that you're finally probably really retired as a head coach?
I think you look on it a lot, to be honest with you. And I think you do say things like, when you're a young coach, you're terribly insecure and you think you have to do everything. And you get a little bit older and you don't care where the credit goes or whoever gets the credit. So you trust and you give ownership to your assistant coaches. And then when you get a little bit older than that, you now give the ownership and the trust to the players. So, for example, your best player, 4 minutes to go in the game, and you got the media timeout, and they're coming off the court. You say, all right, what do you want to run now? I don't care what we run. I care how we run it. But you give ownership to the players. And I think that's when you arrive as a coach, and that's when you arrive as a team. Everybody shares in that ownership. Those are the guys that are doing the work out on the court. Give them some opportunity to tell you what they think and what they feel out there.
You know, Fran, you kind of, there's so many different things to look at in college basketball. And you brought it up, the transfer portal. It's not just the transfer portal, it's the players are free agents every year, and other schools offer them because they can transfer, they're free agents, and they can get more money for another school. If you recruit a player, and obviously the first question I'm going to ask you, how difficult is it to recruit a player when you know, or that player, if he's really a really good player, is probably going to be able to make more money somewhere else?
Yeah, it's what happens. It happened to us last year, and I'm okay with it. It was a young man who graduated. I'll be honest, graduated from LaSalle. That's what I asked him to do, and he did it. I said, I love coaching you. You are a terrific player, and we would be better off if you stayed, but you have to go because you are. The money is amazing out there now, and you need to take advantage of it. So I think all of us do that, knowing that if you recruit a kid and he's a really good player as a freshman, it's likely that he's not going to be a really good player for you as a sophomore. It's just the way of the world. We have what you just said, free agency. There's no salary cap, and we don't have a lot of governance now. We're still figuring out where this thing is going to center, and hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years we'll be coming together, and the game will be a little bit more. There will be more structure in it, and we'll be able to just kind of find our way. But we're in an interesting time, and you can complain about it if you want, or you can say, you know what, we're in the game. We're not in the game at a very high level, but we're in the game, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to do the best we can with what we have, where we are.
You know, in Philadelphia, the Big Five always had, I would say, elite teams. What is and why is and you coached at Temple, St. Joe's, Villanova still was on the edge, but they're not there anymore, especially after this year. But why is Temple not, and you, like I said, you coached there for 13 years, not an elite basketball program anymore? They try. I'm not saying they don't try, but why are they not elite anymore?
I think times have changed, and kids are. Back in the day, everybody in Philadelphia typically stayed in Philadelphia. Well, that's no more. When ESPN hit so many years ago, you can be on TV every night. So TV has changed it. The world has changed it. Young people are ready to go away to school. Uh, I was just talking about a young man from Philly. He's playing at Baylor, and he had a great game yesterday. And that wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have gone from Philly to Texas back in the day. But times have changed, and we have to change with it. I think those years that Coach Chaney had a phenomenal success at Temple. It was 5 Elite Eights. That was pretty impressive. Jay Wright had a run that was just extraordinary for the last 10, 12 years, 15 years of his career. Extraordinary. But it's not easy to do. And how about the world of college basketball has changed? How about the Pac-12 just all of a sudden blowing up? There's no more Pac-12 anymore. How can this be? And I'll make the last thing I'll say to you is the SEC has 14 teams in the tournament. Well, what's going to happen next year? They're not looking to get 12. They're looking to get 16. And the Big Ten has 8 this year. They're looking to get 10 or 12 next year. So where does that leave the rest of us as people in trying to get that 1 bid or 2 bids out of the league that we have? It's an amazing time. And again, we need some governance. We need some help to make us a little bit different. We can count on things a little bit differently.
Well, you brought up the SEC, and I heard Bruce Pearl, I guess a couple of weeks ago. He was on with Charles Barkley. And obviously Charles loves Auburn because that's where he went to school. And Bruce Pearl is a very congenial and nice guy, and he's probably a good coach. Now he can pay players legitimately, where he had some issues before. I mean, that's public record. I mean, that's been reported. But he talks about, the SEC before the bids came out. Probably have 14 teams in the tournament. I want to see what money the SEC, total money the SEC pays to their players compared to, there's only really 5 conferences anymore that can pay these players. I want to see what they pay. And if you're paying players, why you should be elite. I mean, you should have an elite conference. How unfair is that for the mid-majors, for Temple, LaSalle, St. Joe's? I mean, when Phil Martelli was there, did a great job. And he had that undefeated team one year. It's just, I mean, how difficult is it now to compete with those big schools when you can't pay that money?
Well, it's very difficult, but that's the way it is. So you got to compete in your league. You got to compete locally. The competition is going to be there, but the world that we live in now has changed. I'm wondering how the public is accepting this. Where, okay, you have a player and the report is out there that he's making a lot of money. Well, what happens if he misses that shot at the end of the game to win the game? And what happens with those people that are saying, well, I gave a lot of money to the NIL, I want more. Well, then it's involving a lot of craziness that goes on in our game. And you worry about that. And the pressure that comes down, it's coming down on the kids in many ways. And social media is out there, that there's a certain amount of pressure on that. We're in an amazing time, and again, I think it's going to take a little while for us to figure it all out, but we need some governance for sure.
Well, the NCAA has no control anymore. I heard from somebody that now there's a college team that's thinking about naming their team after a sponsor. It won't be the University of whatever. It'll be so-and-so's University of whatever. Where does it stop? And that, to me, is really a big problem. For instance, okay, we're in the NCAA tournament, and there used to be a chance. Valvano, you have to go way back for NC State to win the national championship. Going in, they had no shot. Villanova, nobody thought that they were going to win not just one, but multiple national championships because they weren't that team. Now, if you look at the NCAA, there's no team less than a 3rd seed, and I will guarantee you this right now, no team less than a 3rd seed has a chance to win a national championship. They might win a game or two, like McNeese State and Drake and those teams. But, I mean, how much does that hurt college basketball when you don't have, and there could be what they call a Cinderella with the ability to win a national championship. How much does that hurt?
Well, I think that's what people really paid attention to over the years, that making the field of 64 or 68 or whatever it was during the, back when Walton and uh, Kareem were playing, the field was 32 teams. It might even been 16 to start with. So
Mm-hmm.
we're in a different world, uh, but the your less people are going to be Cinderellas because that's just the way it is, and they have the best players, and obviously the best players are going to win. The coaching is important, but uh, out on the floor, it's all about the Jimmies and the Joes as opposed to the X's and the O's.
Yeah, but that's not. But that doesn't make the sport better. I
Now,
mean,
I'm not suggesting it does. I'm just telling you that we're in a different world right now, and again that Cinderella, whether it was George Mason or Loyola Chicago or UMBC beating Virginia. How about the irony of that? When you now they've just hired the guy who coached UMBC is now going to coach at Virginia. So it's lots of ironies out there and lots of interesting changes in the world of college sports.
okay,
College sports has changed.
yeah, but you've been a coach for a long time, and you can't win without players. You got to have players to win, but you got to be able to coach them. But you still have to have players. So when coaches go in, and I don't know how good or bad a coach Kyle Neptune was with Villanova, who recently was fired. I hate to use that word, but that's what happened. But the alumni force you. Oh, well, they don't have the same players that Jay Wright had. Now Jay Wright was a great coach, and we all agree with that. But how unfair is that when you can't get the players, and then your alumni in bigger, let's say bigger mid majors, or even in the majors, now you're getting players. How unfair is that to a coach? Because you can't get the same players.
I think there is certainly a level of unfairness, but for all of us who got into it, when we signed the papers, you know what the deal is. You got to win. This is about winning, and or else you're going to be criticized, and that's just the way it is. That's the way we enter sports. That's why it's so competitive. That's why we work like we do, and it's you want to put the best product out on the court. You want people to come and watch you. You want people to be impressed with the kids on your team, and because that's what we do. And now there's a level of professionalism in college sports, and that's a shame in many ways. Do I want the kids to be paid? Yeah, I think we should have been giving them stipends all along, which I think would have prevented where we are today. But nobody had that foresight, to be honest with you.
Well, there's coaches that they understand, and they deal with it, but it's really a difficult situation. It's just it's hard to, I guess, have the love of the game when the game you're not on the same playing level as you used to be. How difficult is it,
Yeah.
for all the years that you coached? How difficult is it to still have? It's like Dick Vermeil had a love of the game, and he came back. You came back. Who am I thinking of that also just had? Oh, Larry Brown. That always, and then he became an assistant coach after because he loves to teach. He loves to coach. How difficult is that now?
Yeah, it's out there. People do it. Yeah, did I come back? I came back because it was my alma mater. To be honest with you, asking that question, I appreciate you bringing up Larry Brown, who was just an absolute
Unbelievable
coach to the nth degree, an amazing coach. I would watch him work at practice. He was so welcoming to anybody that wanted to come. He'd ask you questions if you were sitting there. How did you handle that screen and roll? I said, "Yo, you're Larry Brown. I'm just plain old Fran Dunphy. What are you talking about?" And but it was neat to watch those people that are just so wired to coach this game. You're watching Patino and Calipari going head to head. I think this is tremendous for college basketball. I'm anxious to see the game. I don't want to miss a play because these are two guys that can really coach the game and have great programs and always have had.
Yeah, but those are two schools that can pay the players, so they're going to. I mean, they're really obviously excellent coaches. But Patino knows. I think he's already admitted it. he's going to have a whole new team next year because if guys could stay, they're probably going to get paid something more somewhere else. It's just you got to have the NIL money to you could be a good coach, and those two guys are good coaches, but it's an unfair advantage, and I think it's wrong for college sports. It's not as much fun anymore for college sports. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. It's not all about the money, but most of it is. And I just don't think it's fair to coaches at the mid majors like LaSalle and St. Joe and Temple. It's just, and St. Joe did a good job with what they had, but they were never going to get to the level of those other guys. And Billy Lang did a good job with St. Joe's this year. So, but it just disappoints me that coaches can't be the people uh, that they are because they're good coaches, but they don't always get players that are good enough. I just don't know how else to explain it. And I know that's got to be tough.
One last thing on the subject I would say to you, I think we're in a time frame here where we're lessening the value of the education piece to all of us. It's not as important. And I think that's a sad commentary because we grew up and your parents wanted you to go to college to get an education, you'd get a better job and all of that. Well, that's sort of not like how it is anymore. We're lessening the importance of the education. And that's what we sold for all of those years. I'm recruiting you for 40 years, not 4. I'm recruiting you for the rest of your life to be a Penn grad, a Temple grad, a LaSalle grad. Get that education, go forth and do good work and give back and all of those things. And the value of the education is less important.
I remember when Penn got to the Final Four. That's never going to happen again. Never, ever, ever, ever. An Ivy League school get to the final score. Why do I forget the coach's name? You can remind me of the coach at that time.
Bob Weinauer.
Yeah, Bob Weinauer. Another good coach, and he coached a team, but you were on an even plane. It's just really, it's tough. Fran, it's never going to change. The NCAA has no power. The schools have all the power, and that's kind of a shame. But the other thing I want to touch on before you go, and Brandon Graham understands this. Certain professional players understand this. Coaches understand this, to be a part of the community. And what you have done with the other Big Five coaches to the Coaches versus Cancer is so admirable. I mean, it really is, to put all that time in, and I know your wife puts that time in, and it's really admirable. How important do you think that is to be a part of the community and help other people in those kind of ways?
Well, I think it's really important, and I think we've been given these voices and these platforms, and we needed to do something with it. I give Martelli so much credit for, I was sort of his co-pilot, but he was the guy that said, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. And you just followed his lead. I think he was tremendous at that. And it's meant a lot to our college basketball community in Philly because everybody has gotten together, and we've all, and everybody's affected by cancer. There's none of us that escaped. My wife just had it over the last 2 years and had breast cancer, and she's fighting like crazy. And women typically are so much tougher and stronger than men are, just the way it is. And but she fights it, and you watch it. It's just amazing. But we all have this opportunity to raise some money and make life easier and better for those that are affected by it. But the community at large, the Philadelphia corporate community's got behind us. All the schools, it's helped our coaches group, and it galvanizes us. We want to try to beat the brains out of the team you're playing against on a Wednesday night, but on Thursday morning you're going to breakfast with somebody trying to raise money for cancer, because we're all in it. And I think it's been an unbelievable galvanizing thing for the city, and I'm grateful to have so much help in doing it. But we've all come together because we all detest cancer and what it does to our families and our friends.
You know what? I'm sure the breakfast, the Coaches versus Cancer, was successful again. I wasn't invited, so I didn't go. It's just tell the people I don't know.
Who's in charge of that invitation?
Who knows? But I just felt bad. I wasn't just going to show up and say, "Oh,
Why not? Like that's something you don't do? You do
Well,
what you do.
no, but yeah, but I just, because I try to help in a lot of ways. Julia Serving, and I'll share this with you, and I realized that early in my career, we were both in an event for lupus, and I believe it was his sister that had lupus. And he said to me one time, he said, and that time he said, we have a platform. Now, obviously, his was much bigger than mine, but my platform's not bad. And we should help because we have that platform. We should always help people because we have that platform. And I never, ever forgot that. I can't tell you how many years ago that was. That was a long time ago. But certain things people say, and you say, he's right. And, I always try to help, whether it's with autism, with cancer, with leukemia. There's all kinds of things that I've gotten involved in. And it's really important to those people because, especially in our country nowadays, there's not enough support from the government to help those people. And it's a great thing that you guys do. And I know, even though you won't be a coach anymore, you'll still be a big part of the community. And hey, Martelli still dives in, so you're going to have to. He's going to make sure that you dive in for the
No
coaches.
question about it. No question about it. I will say two things. One is, I think we're at our happiest when we are doing for others. And I would say this: when people would say, "Are you friends with Eskin?" I said, "Yes, I am." And here's one of the reasons why. Because let's say you have a charity and you need something signed by somebody else, you would ask Howard, and Howard would never say no. He'd say, "When do you need it?" And it got done because that's who you are, and you got me captured over all these years because there's a goodness there that I'm appreciative of, and that's why we're friends.
You know what? It's interesting. Obviously everybody loves pets, and I also raise money for two SPCA's in Delaware County, where I live outside Philadelphia. And I do it. I pick games for people. I haven't bet a game in 35, 40 years. It's too much aggravation, and it's not necessary. So I pick games for people. They make a donation, and I've raised thousands. I mean, well over $60,000 for two SPCA's in the Brandywine SPCA and Providence Animal Center, because it's important. Because it's hard to raise money for so many things, but you do what you can when you can do it. Eagles Autism, I did what I can when I could do it. And I pick games, and I'm picking them in the NCAA tournament. It's on my Twitter and Facebook, and there's ways that I pick the games. And people are happy to make donations, and just a little more knowledge. Of course, they think I have more knowledge than they do, and I probably do. But whatever the case may be, but it's important to do things for people. But I appreciate everything you've done. Your 625 wins, Fran. I can't remember all of them, but I do. I do remember a lot of them. I do remember.
I remember all the losses. I know that.
I know it's brutal. I mean, it's just when you think about that.
It's how we're wired. Just the way it is.
I know it's just, but so I'm sure you'll still be involved in the college community. I don't know how much LaSalle has asked for your help to kind of look for a new coach. But whatever the case, I'm sure you're always going to be there for all the people that you were a part of and all the schools you were a part of forever.
Thanks, Howard. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and hope I see you soon, my friend.
Yeah, it's just we'll see each other on the golf course if nothing else. But
I hope so.
I need a lot of strokes. I need a lot of strokes, especially from you. I need a lot of strokes. You're one of those Overbrook guys. For people to understand, Overbrook, you never trust any of the handicaps. It's a great club, but you never trust any of the handicaps at Overbrook.
Yeah.
And I know you're not. I don't think you're a member there anymore. But when those guys play, what's your handicap? Oh, really? No, it's not. It's great.
The great equalizer.
I know. Hey, Fran, it's great to have you on, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot over the next few years. And good luck to whatever you get involved in, and you'll always be successful, whatever it is that you do get involved in. And I appreciate it, and say hello to your wife for me.
Will do, Howard. Thanks, buddy. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too. Thanks. Fran Dunphy, who just announced his resignation at the end of the season for LaSalle. Can you imagine that? 30 years of coaching. That doesn't count the 15 years he was an assistant. He's had a lot of coaching. All right, we're going to talk about the Phillies, the greatest Eagles team all time. That's come up, and I saw a list. It's not even close to right. A reminder, not close to being what it really should be. A reminder that Mike Schmidt will be on with us Wednesday on the Howard Eskin podcast. But I also want to tell you, and it's important when you want to save money, a new sponsor, Cut the Cord with Jason. Now, I understand people have already called him once we started talking about it. What he offers, and listen to this is what's good. He offers an incredible service that will save you money. He'll come out to your house, cut your cable off, set you up with less expensive internet service with streaming services, which include, you still get all the stations, all the local and national channels. So you'll get to see the Philadelphia Pro games, the NCAA tournament, it's all there. You'll have multi-screen viewing, this is really kind of cool too, so that you can watch 4 games at the same time, and you're going to save money. You know, think about that. You're going to save money. With the way the cable bills are going up, streaming is the way to go, just like podcasts are the way to go over radio and television. It's the new medium. It's the new world. So for more information on Cut the Cord with Jason and to save a lot of money, here's the number to call, 215-801-5858, 215-801-5858. And I invite, when I talk about the Howard Eskin show being podcast, commercials or advertisements or sponsorships last forever on a podcast. Radio, when they put their shows on a podcast, they take the commercials out and they double dip and they sell them again, or they try to sell that show again. That's not fair. You're going to pay for that show. You should be on that show forever. But with a podcast, you are. With radio, you're not. So if people want to get involved and Cut the Cord with Jason got involved, he sent me an email. He wanted to be a part of the podcast. Sent me an email. We got together and we figured it out. It's not expensive. It's a better value than radio. And I'm telling you that right now. Much better. Much, much, much better value than radio because it lives forever and people can go back and watch it. My first podcast, when I started doing podcasts, Charles Barkley. And the advertisers on there are still on there. The sponsors are still on there. Even though they may not be sponsoring the show at this time, they're still on there. They live forever. It's a much better value. HowardEskin.com if you want to be a part of the Howard Eskin podcast, the Howard Eskin Show podcast. All right, I'm going to take a minuscule break just to, there's a lot of things I want to talk about. A passing of a legendary sports figure last night. I'm going to talk about that. It's really kind of a different world. So we'll do all that stuff, and we'll be right back. All right, you saw the screen there, and you can go on Twitter and Facebook is where I usually post the link for the picks and to make donations to SBCAs. But what I want to talk about now, the Philly season starts on Thursday the 22nd, the 27th, not the 22nd, the 27th. They're on the road, and we're originating from Philadelphia, so I talk about the Phillies for those people. But I think it's ridiculous that they already started the baseball season in Japan. It was great for the people in Japan because the Dodgers have a couple of Japanese players. But that's not, and now they have a week off until they start again. It's so disjointed. It just doesn't work. But the uh, Phillies start next week. Mike Schmidt will be with us on the Howard Eskin show on live on Wednesday, and then it will certainly live forever. I still don't like their lineup. Uh, Rob Thompson has tried many different things, many different lineups. Schwarber's going to probably hit leadoff. He's probably not going to get away from that because the analytics. I didn't ask Fran. I apologize. I didn't ask Fran about analytics, but it's not as prevalent in college. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He should hit fifth. He should hit fifth. I mean, I already got my lineup. Stott, I think, would be Bryson Stott, a better player for the Phillies if he hit higher in the lineup. He works a pitcher. I'd rather have him lead off, Turner second, Harper third. I'd rather have Bohm hit fourth because he makes better contact. Alec Bohm makes better contact than anybody else on the team. The Phillies right now, I know their starting pitching is good. You hope. But I still think they're only a third place team in the NL East. I think clearly the Mets are better. I think the Braves are better. They had some injuries last year, and they don't know injuries or they really hurt a team. But I just don't think they're as good as those other two teams. But we'll see. But the Phillies have something that they're doing to help make their team better. Look at this photograph. They have rebuilt their locker rooms. Try to make it full so people can see it more. Can you do that, Randy? I don't know if you can make it for the full screen. There you go. You see on your picture when you're looking at it, it's on the right. Well, it's actually when you're looking at it, it's on the left. See the lights within the lockers? Oh, isn't that special? And then they're going to have big screens. They have TVs in the locker room right now, but you're going to have TVs. They've had their own cook, their own chef for their food in the locker room. Obviously, they'll continue to have that. They try to have healthy food. It's just, it's crazy. It's really crazy. But I don't know. I guess you want the players there more, but I want them geared up. I want them to go out on the field and practice. I don't want them to stay in the locker room and watch television. And, I know they're going to eat when they get there, and that's fine. They got to keep their strength up and all that. But this is their new secret weapon, the new locker room for the Phillies, both in Clearwater and at Citizens Bank Park. That's going to make them a better team. Now they have it figured out. So we'll see. It's just it's crazy. I also want to talk about the Phillies. Not the Phillies, the Eagles. There was a post up. I don't even know where it came from or where it was. The top 10 players in Eagles history. The top 10 players. Reggie White, clearly the best. No question. And that, in this poll, was number one. Jalen Hurts, number two. You're kidding me, aren't you? Now, Donovan McNabb never won a Super Bowl. He got to a Super Bowl. But if you're basing it on a career, Donovan McNabb has got to be better. He's below on the poll that I saw, below Nick Foles. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl and had a great little tiny stretch. Nick Foles has never, ever started, and you got to love him, and people in Philadelphia love him because of what he did in that Super Bowl. But Donovan McNabb's got to be ahead of both of them. And Jalen Hurts has done a really good job. This poll also has Brian Dawkins listed third, above Chuck Bednarik. Steve Van Buren, people don't remember. People don't remember Chuck Bednarik. Tell me what players play 60 minutes. Travis Hunter coming out of Colorado is probably going to try to play both sides of the football, and we'll see. But Chuck Bednarik, and very difficult positions, played linebacker, defensive line. They kind of shifted it around, was the center. I mean, physically, when playing 60 minutes, if Chuck Bednarik is not number two, then we're missing something here. And again, I only saw him when I was a little kid, but I know who he was. I did a radio show with him, but that doesn't mean I saw him. But Chuck Bednarik has to be has to be number 2. Brian Dawkins was listed as number 3. Jason Kelsey has got to be a more difficult position, played more years. Jason Kelsey has got to be, somewhere Reggie White, Chuck Bednarik, Jason Kelsey, I think Donovan McNabb. Brandon Graham's got to be in the top 5, doesn't he? And I would put Brandon Graham ahead of Brian Dawkins. Brandon Graham meant so much, and Dawkins was great. Dawkins was great. But, this poll, they listed Reggie White, Jalen Hurts, Brian Dawkins. So after number 1, 2, and 3 are wrong. Chuck Bednarik should be higher than 4. Jason Kelsey should be higher than 5. Nick Foles above Donovan McNabb. That's crazy. Steve Van Buren, nobody saw Steve Van Buren, who was a running back, play. Harold Carmichael caught all those passes, and he's listed as 9. I think he's got to be ahead of Nick Foles. And again, I love Nick Foles. And then Brandon Graham has got to be better than 10. I mean, this poll just doesn't work for me. All right, something else that I want to touch on. And in the NFL rule changes that the owners' meeting's coming up at the end of the month. They're now looking to change the kickoff rules again. I think the kickoff rules stink. You try to get guys to run, you try to cut down the injuries, and you try to get run backs. Well, you're not going to cut down the injuries if you're asking for run backs. So they're going to talk about that. Other proposals, and the Eagles have proposed something which actually makes sense. We're both in overtime. If you get to overtime, if the team that gets the ball first scores a touchdown, the game's over. The Eagles want both teams to have a chance to get the football. And it's still going to be a limit to, I think it's 10-minute quarters. Still going to have that limit so it doesn't go too long. And I think that's a good proposal. Green Bay has proposed eliminating the tush push. And I thought at one time in the NFL, I did think there was a rule where you weren't allowed to, I know you can't pull players, but you weren't allowed to push players from behind. And the reality is players are getting pushed from behind with the tush push. I don't think that's going to change. They push the players, and the Eagles have a bigger offensive line than most teams, and that's why I think it's successful. I mean, Jalen Hurts is strong, but he couldn't do it without Landon Dickerson. Cam Jurgens, the center, is bigger than Jason Kelsey, and Jason Kelsey was successful at it. They have big players on the offensive line, and they come behind him and they push. And I thought there was a rule years ago, but that's not going to change. I mean, they might modify it a little bit. I don't know how they could modify it and not really take it out or change it, but I don't think that's going to change, and that's good for the Eagles. And then there was another rule proposal to not have automatic first downs on defensive penalties. So I don't know that that's going to change. I don't, because then you'll find defenders grabbing and holding and doing all kinds of crazy things. Now, so those are the rule changes. I see a lot of comments and the good comments, and I noticed them. Larry Hawk says Chuck was number 1. He probably was number 1, but I'll put Reggie White at number 1. But Bednarik was great. It's just he was great, and Chuck won a championship if you're looking at that. Another guy, Charles McGlinchey, BG in the top 5 for sure. It's just there's a guy named Fred Shaughnessy. Says, cut the cord with Jason. I think I need him badly. Well, I gave you the number, 215-801-5858. 215-801-5858. If you go to his website, Cut the Cord with Jason, is it Cut the Cord Jason? CutTheCordWithJason.com. But anyway, if you go to the phone number, you'll get him. And you'll be able to save yourself a lot of money. All right, there's one other thing that I want to get to. Or maybe more than a couple. There you go. CutTheCordWithJason.com. But the phone number will get him to 215-801-5858. Bill Belichick was a really good coach. He's not the best. I I don't think he's in the top 3 or 4. Bill Walsh, which people may remember with San Francisco, I think is better. Andy Reid is the best coach right now in football, and I think Andy Reid is better. There's a lot of there's at least 3 or 4 coaches that I think are better than Bill Belichick. Actually, Richard Grant, I see. Where's Lane Johnson? Actually, that's actually a good point. But who would you take out, Richard? Who would you take out if you put Lane Johnson in there? But that's kind of another guy, Lee Goldstein, says I don't really like the tush push. You know, once you get, and Mike Garafolo last week brought up, the Eagles are never 1st and 10; they're always 1st and 9 because they know with a yard left, it's going to be the tush push. So, but back to Bill Belichick. He had Tom Brady. He was, we know he was cheating because he was found guilty of cheating. So the Patriots got, I think they lost a draft pick and a fine, big deal. How long he cheated, we'll never know how long he cheated. But interesting guy. And recently, and I don't want to criticize a guy's personal life because that's, you know, he does what he wants to do. He has a girlfriend who was a former cheerleader with Division III, but nonetheless, she was a cheerleader. I think she's in her mid-20s. He's 70 something, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. The age doesn't matter. However, you know, to do what he does, all right, I want you to watch this video. Now, he's on a beach, and I think it was, I'm not sure exactly where it was. We can put up the video with Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. We have the picture there. Do we have any rolling video of that, Randy?
Yeah, it should be.
It's frozen. Okay. Okay. So now he's on a beach, whatever the case may be. He's on a beach doing these things with his girlfriend. And that's fine. He wants to do it. But he knows somebody's videotaping it. The video froze. He knows somebody's videotaping it. And I imagine she must have posted it. You know, there's a point. You know, you make yourself look bad. Hey, it's great. It's great. I mean, if you two guys are excited to be with one another, that's great. That's great. If you're excited to be one another. But to have somebody videotape it and post it, it's just, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You know, it's just, and it's almost like he tries to parade her around. It's like, look who I have as my girlfriend. And that's fine. But you don't make an issue, in my opinion, you don't make an issue of it. And that's where people will criticize you. Not because you two guys are together. If you two guys want to be together, that's fine. Well, no problem with that. She wants to be with Belichick. I forget her name, and he wants to be with her because she's young. But that's all well and good. And maybe he really does. Maybe he really does love her. But whatever the case may be, that's fine. But you don't have to make a public display of this. That's where I have a problem. Not that he's with the girl. That's great. I love this comment from Jeff's Dungeon. Belichick working on his own tush push. That's actually pretty good, Jeff. That is really pretty good. So people saying hi, and that's great. Actually, somebody brought up Jerome Brown. I don't think Jerome played here long enough, but Jerome was a great player and obviously killed in the car accident, which is really sad. And somebody else passed away with him. Somebody else said, Richard Grant, to answer your question, I love BG, but I'd replace him with Lane Johnson. Actually, that might be a good point, but I'd still have them both. Thinking about it now, I'd still have them both in the top 10. That's a really good point. But I appreciate everybody. Well, somebody also said, Mark, it looks like Person, Belichick can now cheat at UNC. Well, you don't have to cheat anymore because you can pay players. And I'm sure he's going to get NIL money being at North Carolina. So, hey, listen, he's going to, anybody that wants to pay players, you can legally because the NCAA has no control. Yeah, I'm trying to look at the comments while I'm trying to do the show, but I appreciate people being part of the show. I appreciate your viewing the Howard Eskin podcast, available right now on all the platforms, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, available on Instagram, available on Facebook, and available on YouTube. And I suggest, and I believe you'll be alerted when the podcast comes on live on YouTube. So I urge you to subscribe to YouTube, and you can watch them on any of the platforms, but YouTube is a good platform. They're all good to watch the Howard Eskin Show podcast. All right, thanks again. Thanks to our new sponsor, and that would be Cut the Cord with Jason, 215-801-5858. Only if you want to save money. Only if you want to. Look at that graphic. You can watch 4 different games, like the NCAA tournament are probably on 2 or 3 channels, but you want to watch maybe one of your favorite shows. I got to admit, I'm a little sick. Law and Order is one of my favorite shows. It's crazy. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a lot of them. I like the old ones better than the new Law and Order, but I could watch that while I'm watching the sports. I could watch, if the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Flyers playing the same night, you could watch all of them at the same time. How good is that? 215, Cut the Cord with Jason, 215-801-5858. And Jason, welcome to the Howard Eskin Show, and anybody else that wants to be part of this fine program. Remember, your announcements, your sponsorship, your engagement with the show lives forever, because a podcast lives forever. Not like radio and TV, where it doesn't live forever. This is the new medium. Podcasts in the new world. There's a radio company, and I'll mention this, I believe it was Cumulus, turned off. Think about this. They turned the switch off on 20 of their radio stations across the country. More AM stations are doing that, and Cumulus turned off some FM stations too, because the ability to make the revenue you need to make a company successful, and the company that I work for has some financial issues, which they've laid off lots of people over the last month and the last few weeks, and it's just, I feel bad for those people because it's not fair. Especially loyalty should go 2 ways, and it doesn't always go 2 ways, and they're not the only company. There's a bunch of companies, but podcasts are the way of the future in media, more so, and it's not even going to be close, more so than radio, certainly radio and for TV. Now, how many people watch a local newscast? Why? I get all my news on my phone. I get it all the time. But again, thanks for joining us. And to Bill Belichick and his girlfriend, enjoy your weekend. Hey, listen, I have no problem with the connection. I have a problem with making it a public spectacle. That's all. An issue, not a problem. An issue with making a public spectacle. But thanks to all you people for being a part of this public spectacle. Spectacle? No, the Howard Eskin Show is not a spectacle. It's just a show. And Wednesday night, Mike Schmidt will join us. Thanks again for joining us for the Howard Eskin Show. And it's available. You can watch it again if you haven't missed some of it on all those social media platforms. And thanks again.